Commander Yavik stood in the doorway of Supply Room 7, with all four of his eyes wide open. His mandibles clicked together 3 times, which in Threlian body language meant complete confusion. Behind him, Lieutenant Soro pressed her optical sensors forward to see what had stopped her superior officer so suddenly. "Is that what I think it is?" Soro asked in her mechanical voice. "If you think it is a nest made entirely from our dress uniforms, then yes," Yavix replied. The nest sat in the corner of the supply room like a defiant sculpture. Someone had carefully arranged at least 15 crisp military uniforms into a circular structure. The fabric had been folded and layered with surprising care. The midnight blue jackets formed the outer walls, while the white shirts created a soft interior. In the very center of this textile fortress, 2 small creatures slept peacefully. The creatures were barely the size of Yavix's upper manipulator limb. They had rounded bodies covered in orange and black striped fur, 4 tiny paws tucked beneath them. Their faces were flat with small pink noses. Even in sleep, their little mouths showed hints of sharp teeth. "Those are Earth predators," Soro stated, her database already identifying the species. "Felis catus, juvenile specimens. The humans call them kittens." Yavix moved closer, his boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. The kittens did not wake. One of them made a small rumbling noise from its chest. The commander had read about this sound. Purring, the humans called it, a sign of contentment. "How did they get on board?" Yavix asked. "That is an excellent question, sir." The GCS Endeavour had been docked at Terra Station for 3 weeks. The crew had loaded supplies, completed repairs, and prepared for their next patrol mission through the outer sectors. Apparently, someone had also loaded 2 baby predators. Yavix should have been angry. Military protocols existed for good reasons. Animals on board starships created complications with life support systems, hygiene standards, and safety regulations. These particular animals came from Earth, the death world that had produced humanity. Earth predators were not pets. They were dangerous creatures that evolution had sharpened into killing machines. He looked down at the sleeping kittens again. One of them yawned, showing a tiny pink tongue and teeth no bigger than grains of rice. Then it curled tighter into a ball and resumed purring. "We should inform Captain Dreshna," Soro suggested. "Yes," Yavix agreed, though he made no move toward the door. "We should definitely do that." They stood there for another full minute, just watching the kittens sleep. The news spread through the ship faster than light itself. By the time the 3rd shift began, every crew member had heard about the kittens in Supply Room 7. By the 4th shift, they had names. The orange kitten with the white paws became Sergeant Whiskers. The slightly larger one with the black nose became Admiral Paws. Nobody could remember who suggested the names first, but they stuck with the permanence of a hull breach sealant. Captain Dreshna called a meeting in her ready room. She sat behind her desk, all 7 feet of crystalline Corthan physiology glittering under the overhead lights. Around her stood Commander Yavix, Lieutenant Soro, Chief Medical Officer Hrenk, and Chief Engineer Volos. "Explain to me," Captain Dreshna said in her voice that sounded like wind chimes in a storm, "how 2 Earth predators boarded my ship without any documentation, authorization, or even a basic health inspection." The officers looked at each other. Volos, a stout Groovian with rock-like skin, cleared his throat with a sound like grinding stones. "They are very small predators, Captain," Volos offered. "That is not an explanation. That is an observation." "The dock workers must have loaded them with the supply containers," Yavix suggested. "Perhaps they were hiding in one of the crates from Earth." "Or perhaps," Dreshna said, her facets reflecting light in sharp angles, "one of our human crew members smuggled them aboard." The accusation hung in the air like smoke. The Endeavour carried 43 humans in its crew of 200. Humans were excellent soldiers, engineers, and tacticians. They were also notorious for their emotional attachment to Earth's predator species. The galaxy had not yet decided if this trait represented bravery or insanity. "Should I question the human crew?" Yavix asked. Captain Dreshna drummed her crystalline fingers on the desk. The sound was like rain on glass. "What does Dr. Hrank say about the animals?" she asked instead. The Zentari medical officer shuffled his 3 legs and consulted his datapad. His gray skin rippled with the color patterns that indicated deep thought. "I examined them this morning, Captain. Both specimens appear healthy. No diseases, no parasites. They are approximately 8 weeks old. They require regular feeding, water, and waste elimination facilities." "Can they survive our ship environment?" "Yes, with proper care. The atmosphere, temperature, and gravity are all within acceptable ranges for Earth species." "And the danger level?" Hrank's skin flickered from gray to pale blue, which meant he found the question amusing. "At their current size and age, Captain, they pose approximately the same threat level as a Floranian dust bunny. Perhaps less, since they lack venom. But they will grow," Dreshna pointed out. "True. An adult Felis catus can reach 4 to 5 kilograms. They have retractable claws, sharp teeth, and hunting instincts. However, humans have lived alongside them for over 10,000 years. When socialized properly, they bond with other species and become companions rather than threats." Captain Dreshna leaned back in her chair. The motion created a cascade of light across her body. "And if we remove them from the ship?" she asked. "We are 3 days from the nearest station," Yavix reminded her. "And that station has no facilities for animal care. By the time we return to Terra Station, the kittens will be several months older." "They have also already made an impression on the crew," Soro added. "Morale has increased 17% since their discovery. Crew members are volunteering for additional shifts in areas near Supply Room 7. Even the Zorathian contingent has expressed interest in observing them." Captain Dreshna made a sound like crystal bells breaking, her species' version of a sigh. "So what you are telling me is that 2 tiny predators have taken control of my ship through cuteness alone?" "Essentially, yes, Captain," Yavix confirmed. Dreshna stood and walked to the window. Beyond the reinforced glass, stars streaked past as the ship traveled through subspace. She had commanded the Endeavor for 6 years. In that time, she had faced pirates, navigated asteroid fields, and negotiated with hostile governments. She had never surrendered her ship to anything. "Very well," she said finally. "The creatures may remain, but I want protocols established, feeding schedules, health monitoring, containment procedures, and someone needs to find out which human is responsible for this situation." "Yes, Captain," the officers replied in unison. "And Commander Yavix?" "Yes." "Captain? Those uniforms they destroyed need to be replaced. The cost will come from somewhere." Yavix's mandibles clicked nervously. "Of course, Captain." As the officers filed out of the ready room, Captain Dreshna turned back to the stars. Through her reflection in the glass, she could see the hint of what might have been a smile forming in her crystalline features. Private Chen found Commander Yavix in the mess hall during 5th shift. The young human approached the table where Yavix sat reviewing supply manifests on his datapad. Chen's face showed the expression humans called nervousness. "Commander, sir? May I speak with you?" Yavix looked up. "Private Chen, please sit." Chen sat down carefully, as if the chair might break beneath her. She was small for a human, barely 5 feet tall, with dark hair pulled back in regulation style. Her hands twisted together on the table. "I know about the kittens, sir," she said quietly. "I suspected as much. You were in charge of the supply loading at Terra Station." "Yes, sir. But I didn't bring them on board. I found them in Cargo Bay 2 yesterday morning. They must have sneaked in while we were loading. I should have reported them immediately, but... She trailed off, looking down at her hands. But they were very small and very helpless. Yavix finished for her. Yes, sir. On Earth, kittens that young without a mother usually die. I couldn't just throw them out into the station. So I found them a safe place and I was going to figure out what to do, but then everyone found them and now I don't know what happens and I'm sorry, sir. The words came out in a rush, the way water escapes from a ruptured pipe. Yavix set down his datapad and regarded the young human. In the 3 years since humanity had joined the Galactic Cooperative, he had learned much about their species. They were fierce warriors when needed, but they also possessed a strange softness for small creatures. This contradiction puzzled most alien species, but Yavix had started to understand it. Private Chen, are you trained in the care of these animals? Yes, sir. I grew up with cats. I had 3 back home. Then you will be assigned as their primary caretaker. Lieutenant Soro will work with you to establish proper protocols. The cost of the damaged uniforms will be deducted from your pay over the next 6 months. Chen's face transformed. Humans showed emotion so clearly compared to other species. Relief, gratitude, and joy all appeared in the arrangement of her features. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. I promise I'll take good care of them. They won't be any trouble at all. Yavix's mandibles clicked in his species' version of gentle humor. Private, they have already converted a supply room into their personal territory and destroyed military property to make a bed. They are already trouble, but they are apparently trouble that the crew has decided to accept. Sergeant Whiskers and Admiral Paws will be model crew members, sir. You'll see. Sergeant Whiskers and Admiral Paws, Yavix repeated slowly. We are giving military ranks to predators now? They earned them, sir. They successfully infiltrated a military vessel and established a forward position without detection. That takes skill. Despite himself, Yavix found his mandibles clicking again. The human sense of humor was contagious. Dismissed, Private Chen. Report to Lieutenant Soro at 0800 tomorrow to begin setting up care protocols. Chen stood and saluted. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. As she walked away, Yavix returned to his datapad. But his mind was not on supply manifests anymore. He was thinking about 2 small creatures sleeping in a nest of stolen uniforms, completely unaware of the chaos they had created. The weeks that followed brought unexpected changes to the GCS endeavor. Supply Room 7 underwent modifications. Private Chen, with approval from Captain Dreshna, converted it into proper quarters for the kittens. The damaged uniforms were officially written off as casualties of an unknown incident. Nobody investigated too closely. The kittens grew rapidly, as young creatures do. Their legs grew longer. Their paws grew larger. Their eyes, which had been blue when they first arrived, turned green and gold. They explored their new home with the fearless curiosity that made felines such successful hunters on Earth. Sergeant Whiskers proved to be the adventurous one. He escaped from the supply room on his 3rd week aboard and was found in engineering, attempting to catch the light patterns that danced across the control panels. Chief Engineer Volos discovered him and, instead of returning him immediately, spent an hour watching the kitten pounce on reflections. Volos reported that it was the most entertainment he had experienced in months. Admiral Paws was more reserved but showed remarkable intelligence. He learned to open the supply room door by jumping and hitting the control panel. Lieutenant Soro caught him doing this and, fascinated by his problem-solving abilities, began testing his cognitive functions. Her reports noted that the kitten showed learning capabilities comparable to a young Zentari. The crew's reaction surpassed every expectation. Off-duty personnel would visit Supply Room 7 to interact with the kittens. The Zorathian weapons specialists, normally the most serious members of the crew, began a rotation schedule to ensure fairness in visiting time. A Threlian engineer fabricated toys from spare parts, including a complex device with moving parts and hanging strings that the kittens could bat at. Most surprising was Chief Medical Officer Hrank. The elderly Zentari, known for his strict adherence to medical protocols, began carrying treats in his pockets. He would visit the kittens during his break periods and could often be found sitting on the floor, letting them climb over his legs while he worked on his data pad. "They have therapeutic value," he explained when Yavix questioned this behavior. "Studies show that interaction with Earth's companion animals reduces stress hormones across multiple species. I am conducting research." "Research that requires you to let a kitten sleep on your lap?" Yavix asked. "The contact provides valuable data on interspecies bonding," Hrank replied with absolute seriousness, though his skin flickered with colors that suggested amusement. Even Captain Dreshna was not immune. One morning, Commander Yavix arrived for the daily briefing to find Sergeant Whiskers sitting on the captain's desk. The kitten was patting at the stylus in Dreshna's hand while she tried to work. "Don't look at me like that, Commander," Dreshna said without looking up. "Private Chen brought him for socialization exercises. I am merely cooperating with crew training protocols." "Of course, Captain," Yavix replied, his mandibles carefully neutral. "Besides, he is quite good at detecting errors in my reports. Every time I make a mistake, he attacks the stylus." "A valuable security function, Captain." "Precisely." The real test came during the Endeavor's first combat situation after the kitten's arrival. The ship received a distress call from a mining colony under attack by raiders. Captain Dreshna ordered battle stations. The crew moved with practiced efficiency to their positions. In the chaos of preparation, nobody thought about the kittens. When the ship's weapons opened fire, the sound and vibration traveled through every deck. In Supply Room 7, both kittens woke from their nap in terror. The unfamiliar sensations triggered their prey animal instincts. They were no longer predators, but frightened babies seeking safety. Sergeant Whiskers bolted from the room through a maintenance duct. Admiral Paws ran in the opposite direction, heading toward the crew quarters. Alarms blared. The ship maneuvered hard, creating artificial gravity fluctuations. For two small creatures from a stable planetary environment, it was overwhelming. Private Chen, stationed at her post in communications, heard about the escape over the crew channel. She wanted to abandon her position and search for them, but military discipline held her in place. She sat at her station, divided between duty and worry, as the battle raged around the ship. The engagement lasted 40 minutes. The Endeavor's superior weapons and tactics drove off the raiders, protecting the mining colony. Captain Dreshna ordered all clear. The crew began post-battle protocols. "Private Chen," Dreshna's voice came over the comm system. "Report to Deck 3, Section 7. Chen's heart sank. That was nowhere near the supply room. She ran through the corridors, her mind creating terrible scenarios. She reached the specified location and found half a dozen crew members gathered around something. "Private!" Lieutenant Soro called out. "Quickly!" Chen pushed through the crowd and stopped. There, sitting in the middle of the corridor, were both kittens. They were huddled together, still frightened but unharmed. And surrounding them in a protective circle were 4 Zorathian warriors, each one massive compared to the tiny cats. The warriors, who were the fiercest fighters on the ship, sat on the floor with their weapons set aside. Their arms formed a barrier between the kittens and the rest of the corridor. "We found them running," one Zorathian explained in his deep, rumbling voice. "They were scared. We made them safe." Chen knelt down slowly. "Thank you. Thank you so much." She reached into the circle. Sergeant Whiskers and Admiral Paws immediately ran to her, climbing up her uniform and burying their faces in her neck. She could feel them trembling against her skin. "They are pack creatures, yes?" the Zorathian asked. "Like us. They needed their pack." Chen nodded, not trusting her voice. She stood carefully. cradling both kittens against her chest. "You are their pack leader," the Zorathian continued. "You keep them safe. But in battle, we keep them safe too. They are part of crew now. Crew protects crew." The other Zorathians rumbled their agreement, a sound like distant thunder. That evening, Captain Dreshna called another meeting. This time, Private Chen was included. She stood at attention, still wearing her uniform that was now covered in orange and black fur. "Private Chen," Dreshna began, "today's incident has made something clear. The kittens cannot remain in Supply Room 7 during combat situations. They need a designated safe location with proper containment." "Yes, Captain," Chen replied, her heart heavy. She had known this would come eventually. "Therefore, you and the kittens will be reassigned. Your new quarters will be on Deck 5, Section 2. The room has been modified with reinforced doors, vibration dampening, and sound insulation. During combat situations, you will secure the kittens there and then report to your station." Chen blinked. "Captain, I'm being assigned quarters with them?" "The kittens have imprinted on you. Separating you would cause them significant stress. Additionally, having their caretaker nearby will make protocols more efficient. This is a practical decision, Private. Do not read more into it than necessary." "Yes, Captain." "Thank you, Captain." "Furthermore," Dreshna continued, and something in her tone made everyone in the room pay closer attention, "I am officially recognizing Sergeant Whiskers and Admiral Paws as ship's morale officers. This designation will be entered into the crew manifest. They will receive appropriate care, nutrition, and medical attention as befits their rank and function." Commander Yaviks's mandibles clicked rapidly. "Captain, ship's cats were a tradition on Earth's sailing vessels for centuries. You are reviving an ancient human custom." "I am establishing a new galactic cooperative tradition," Dreshna corrected. "And I am doing so based on documented improvements in crew performance, morale, and unit cohesion since the kittens arrived. The data supports this decision." "Of course, Captain," Yaviks agreed, though his mandibles continued clicking with what might have been laughter. The months passed, and the Endeavor continued its patrol through the outer sectors. Sergeant Whiskers and Admiral Paws grew from tiny kittens into sleek young cats. They never lost their playfulness, but they developed dignity that came with age and their unofficial positions in the crew. They attended briefings by riding on shoulders. They inspected workstations by walking across control panels. They conducted security checks by hiding in small spaces and surprising crew members. And they provided comfort during difficult times by simply being present, purring in laps, and reminding everyone that even in the vast emptiness of space, small, warm creatures still existed. The story of the predator cubs who built a nest from uniforms spread throughout the galactic cooperative. Other ships began reporting similar incidents. Kittens, puppies, and other Earth creatures started appearing on vessels across the fleet. Command tried to regulate it, but the practice proved unstoppable. Humans, it turned out, would smuggle companion animals anywhere they went, and alien crew members discovered they enjoyed the company of these small predators. Admiral Chen, as she became known 20 years later, would tell the story differently. In her version, Sergeant Whiskers and Admiral Paws had been highly trained infiltration specialists, sent to soften up the alien crew for humanity's expansion into the stars. She would say this with such a serious expression that young officers could never tell if she was joking. Commander Yaviks, retired and living on a peaceful colony world, kept a picture on his desk. It showed a younger version of himself standing in Supply Room 7, looking down at a nest made of uniforms. In the nest, 2 tiny kittens slept peacefully, unaware they were about to change the entire galactic cooperative's understanding of what made a crew complete. And Captain Dreshna, in her memoirs, published after a long and distinguished career, devoted an entire chapter to the incident. She titled it, "The Day 2 Earth Predators Taught Me That Sometimes the Best Command Decisions Are the Ones You Never Planned to Make." On the GCS Endeavor, in quarters that had once been Supply Room 7 but were now maintained as a memorial, a brass plaque was mounted on the wall. It read, "Here slept Sergeant Whiskers and Admiral Paws, ship's cats, who proved that even the smallest crew members can have the biggest impact." And beneath the plaque, someone had left a carefully folded uniform jacket, just in case any future kittens needed a comfortable place to sleep.